Nice job.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming this evening. Many of you might already know me. My name is Jess Bouchard. I'm the director for Queer Connect. I'm also a local teacher and a school administrator here in SBSU. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this very important as well as members of our community for this special opportunity. This forum is a space where we can engage in a meaningful dialogue and hear directly from those who seek to represent us. At Queer Connect, we believe in the power of community and the importance of ensuring that every voice is heard, particularly those of the LGBTQIA community and those who have historically been marginalized. Tonight, we come together not just as voters, but as advocates for equity, inclusion, and justice. We know that decisions made at every level of government have a profound impact on our lives, and this forum provides us with an opportunity to learn more about how each candidate plans to address the issues that matter most to Vermonters, specifically Bennington County, individually and collectively. Thank you to the candidates for joining us and for your commitment to public service. We appreciate your willingness to engage with our community and to share your visions with us for the future. And to everyone here tonight, thank you for being part of this conversation. Your participation is a testament to the strength and resilience of this community. Let's have an open, respectful, and enlightening discussion. Together, we can help shape a future that is inclusive, equitable, and reflective of the diverse voices in our beloved state of Vermont. Our moderator this evening is Jacqueline Matz. She is the board chair here at Queer Connect, and she is the chair of the Town Charter Review Committee. She's going to explain the ground rules for this forum, and then the candidates introduce themselves. At this time, I will have Jackie take it away.
Thank you, Jess. I'd like to take a to sort of let everyone know how we got here. So our current state senators from Bennington County are Brian Campion and Dick Sears. In mid-May, Brian Campion decided that he would not seek re-election. At that time, he endorsed Seth Bongartz, whose name, unfortunately, does have a Z in it. On May 30th, Seth Bongartz and Dick Sears qualified to be on the primary ballot. On June 1st, Dick Sears, unfortunately, passed away. Since that time, several other candidates have expressed interest in serving on the state senate for Bennington County in place of Dick Sears. We have those candidates with us tonight. Some of them are running a write-in campaign asking you to write their names on the ballot. Some of them are asking you to vote for Dick Sears and hope that the committee that would be established to choose Dick Sears' replacement will choose them. We have with us tonight Seth Bongartz, Tina Cook, Rob Plunkett, Kate Seaton, and Jonathan West. The primary election is on August 13th. That is this coming Tuesday. Please check your local government website for the time and location where you should vote. Please vote. I would like to thank the Second Congregational Church for giving us this space tonight. I'd like to thank Cat TV for filming and broadcasting this event. Queer Connect for hosting this event. Our rules tonight are that each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. They will each have 2 minutes to answer a series of questions. They will each have an opportunity to answer first. Finally, they will be given 2 minutes each for a closing statement. We have a timekeeper here, also from our board, Jennifer Eastman, who will show a 30-second warning to the candidates, and we'll let them know when their time. Candidates, thank you for attending. We can go ahead and begin with opening statements. Representative Bongartz, we can begin with you.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I grew up in Manchester, and I actually live on the same property on which I grew up. My sister lives next door in the house in which we grew up. My wife, Chris, spent her career as a public health nurse here in Bennington County, actually in Bennington, and after retiring, fulfilled a lifelong dream of becoming a school nurse. Our son lives in Brooklyn and works for a nonprofit with a mission of providing economic opportunity to often forgotten communities across the country. Over the years, as a legislator in my 20s, then as an attorney engaged in a combination of criminal defense work, representing municipalities, and mostly doing environmental work and representing environmental organizations, then as president of Hildene, and now back in the legislature for the last 4 years, I'm something like known countywide. I am also a recognized leader in the House, especially on housing and environmental issues. I'm one of the hardest workers in the legislature year-round. For the last 4 years, we've had one of the most effective legislatures in Vermont's history. We funded the needs of government and thus the needs of Vermonters. We saved the child care system from collapse. We passed, and the voters approved, a constitutional amendment protecting a woman's right to bodily autonomy. Decent, stable housing is the most important determinant of physical and mental health. It is critical to the well-being of children. We put hundreds of millions of dollars into housing. We required towns with sewer and water to allow denser housing in their downtowns, including multifamily units, and made it harder for neighbors to block the building of shelters. We passed fundamentally important environmental legislation and some really groundbreaking energy legislation that will make Vermont less dependent on imports as we take control of our energy future, thus keeping hundreds of millions of dollars in state, and I will wrap up. We'll stop there.
Thank you, Representative Bongartz. Tina Cook.
Hi, my name is Tina Cook. I am a Bennington resident. I am a 25-year resident, mother, employee, friend, philanthropist, activist. I'm originally from California. I moved here in 1999 during the blizzard of '99, and that's when I got to see what Vermont was really made of, who the people of Vermont really are. So I was saved on the side of the road, which is a typical story for most people in Vermont. And I thought that was the way that I was going to die, because I've seen that movie, right? We never make it out. But the woman that picked me up was so beautiful. She said that if I wanted to, she would take me to work every day. And I'd never heard anything like that in my life. So that's when I knew I wanted to stay, because of the people. Vermont is a small state. I love the country atmosphere. I come from a small town. My sister calls me a small town girl. And I have worked so hard in the last 3 years to protect Vermont. I don't know if many of you know, but we are under attack from private equity. Everybody has been buying up this area, and housing is not just a political campaign slogan for me. It's real world issue for me. I was a victim of a predatory lender. So I'm asking for your vote today. I have wonderful plans that we'll get to talk about, hopefully, when we have our questions. And I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Rob?
Thank you, Jackie. And good luck on the Charter Review Committee. It's fun. Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Rob Plunkett, and I'm asking those of you that haven't done so already to write my name in as a Democratic candidate for the state Senate. So I was pretty excited to get this invitation, because I was at, it might have been a week ago, might have been a couple of weeks ago, the House Forum with Tim, Asher, Will, and Leon. And I wanted to be part of that. So I'm happy to be part of this, but 2 minutes is not a very long time. So just a little bit about myself for those that don't know me. I'm a father. I live with my son and my daughter and our 16 or 17-year-old dog in Bennington. And I grew up in Bennington. I went to the public schools here. After that, I went to Amherst College. And after I graduated from Amherst, I went to California, and I worked for a private investigator there, which is an interesting job. And but I came back, and I worked for the Garders, Leonid, Dimitri, Sasha Garter, and I worked with Jen at Global Z International, and we processed international address data. That is a lot more exciting than you think it is. It was actually great. It took me to Russia. But eventually, I decided in my early 20s to go to law school. I went to law school. I came back here, worked with Tom Jacobs, Lon McClintock, Justine Scanlon, and then after that, I became a prosecutor here and serving the county of Bennington. I've been doing that for the last 17 years. And hopefully, I'll talk a little bit more, but thank you for the warning, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Kate Seaton.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Seaton, born and raised in North Bennington. I currently live in Shaftesbury with my significant other and 5 fur kids. In 2004, I graduated from Mount Anthony Union High School. I was brimming with excitement, very enthusiastic. I was going to see the whole world. I was on to better things. It took a few years being away from home to realize that the best things are right here. They're right here in Vermont. I could not wait to come back. But I couldn't come back when I wanted to because I couldn't afford to. This was after I was forced into bankruptcy at age 21 because I had emergency medical bills that I couldn't pay because I couldn't afford insurance, and this was before the ACA. I also couldn't find employment that had health care included. I still remember what it feels like to be on food stamps. I still remember what it feels like to go through my car seats, looking for enough change to buy a gallon of milk. I lost everything I had because I couldn't afford rent, and this was around 2008. I was assaulted multiple times by men in positions of power. I was laid off 3 times in a row because private equity and stockholders thought they deserved my salary more than I did. So I finally was able to come back home around the time that Roe v. Wade was overturned and women were demoted to second-class status by the Supreme Court. I am here now because I believe that we need intelligent, well-educated students who are going to grow up here, who are going to live here, stay here, work here. I think that people should have the right to live here in dignity, to feel safe, secure, to have clean air, clean water, healthy food at the grocery store. That being said, I'm not perfect. I'm Kate, but I will be your champion every day if you give me the privilege and the honor to do so. I am asking for you to write my name in on August 13th to be your state senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. My audio engineers, I don't know anything about that, have asked that we speak close directly into the microphone. Jonathan West.
Thank you, Jackie. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan West. I am a dad of 4 young kiddos. I am the husband of a retired U.S. Army veteran, and I am a 10th generation resident of Bennington County. I'm a member of the Manchester Select Board, as well as the Manchester Housing Task Force. I am also the chair of the Marketing and Outreach Committee and data director for the Bennington County Democratic Committee. But all of that certainly doesn't really give you a glimpse of who I am and what I believe in. But what I can tell you is that I will always remember that when I came home from the hospital with my parents, I came home to my home, which was a trailer. My parents worked incredibly hard for everything we had. They cleaned houses, they washed windows, yes, even pulled an oil hose for the local oil delivery company for close to 30 years. They did all that because that's what we needed to get by with. My weekends were spent here in Bennington because I couldn't afford the clothes in Manchester. I love the memories of stopping at Jensen's or the Woolworth Diner, the cafeteria for a quick bite to eat or a snack on the way out. But I say that to say that we are all struggling, especially right now. And let's be honest, we need to do more. We expect more from our elected officials. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running, because I want to earn your vote. And if given the opportunity, I would be honored to be your next senator from Bennington County.
Thank you, Jonathan. We'll begin with our first question. Vermont's landscape is more than a beautiful view. It is our state's past, present, and future. Environmental justice has deep roots in Vermont. Shortly before his passing, Senator Dick Sears was a prime sponsor of the Climate Superfund Act. He felt strongly about making polluters pay for the damage they caused, a view born from fighting to help constituents whose drinking water had been polluted by a local company's use of the forever chemicals known as PFAS. What role would you take in stewarding our state's precious natural resources to ensure the future? Tina Cook, we can start with you.
Thank you. Well, Dick Sears' work to improve the state of Vermont is legendary, and I'm definitely going to miss him. He was a champion for my run for Select Board, and I really appreciated all the information he shared so generously with me. I would seek to implement more community-driven solutions. So work from a bottom-up solution. For instance, community land trusts. Community land trusts. Fundamentally, community land trusts operate on the principle of community-owned land. So, residents own the structures that they live in, be it a home, an apartment, a commercial establishment, but they lease the land from the trust. So, by delinking the value of the land from the property, we are able to offer effective strategies that keep growth manageable as well as environmentally sustainable. So that is one solution that I'm definitely going to champion in the Senate should you decide to write me in. And I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Plunkett?
Thank you, Jackie. And Vermont's landscape is literally Vermont. It's in the name of Vermont. And it's our identity, it's our brand, and it's simply our livelihood. So what I didn't get to say earlier, because my speech was too long, was that I'm brand new to this. I've started this only about 6 weeks ago as a politician, so I still have a lot to learn about a lot of these issues, and environmental issues are simply just one of them. So right now, I can't say that I would be a steward in any way. I could say that I would definitely be a supporter. And what I have been learning is really, truly spectacular. And you heard from Seth earlier that the last 4 years, the legislature has been taking immense strides. The Act 250 reform, and specifically here, the Climate Superfund was asked in the question. The AHA, I understand that there's a significant disinformation campaign regarding that, which we have to attack head on. We have to address that. But what I see just as a Vermonter is a couple of things come to mind. First is that some renewable energy projects clash with the landscape. When I go to Wilmington, my heart breaks seeing that ridgeline. And Bennington has had the same sort of thing where there's a clash between solar projects and the local landscape. And I think the Senate can play a more significant role in easing these conflicts. And lastly, the Climate Superfund, that's going to be attacked in court. It's going to be attacked hard. In the Senate, the legislature has to be ready with the resources to defend that with all of our partners, New York right now, and others in the future.
Thank you, Rob. Kate Seaton?
Thank you. I 100% support Dick Sears' position on the Climate Superfund Act and his general stance on environmental protection. I think that, as Rob over here said, our landscape it's part of what makes Vermont. It's our identity. We are the Green Mountain State, right? I'm also 100% committed to safeguarding those resources. I believe that if people or businesses come here and they harm our environment or they harm our people, they absolutely should be held accountable for that. I think that is our senator's job. That being said, I do think we have more room for work here. I know that we have community-scale solar farms here in Bennington, but it's not accessible to a lot of people at this moment. It's fairly limited. I would like to see more of our residents benefit from community-scale solar. We also need to modernize our grid. That's one area that I think we need to get ahead of before we start getting more people here. We need to have the ability to integrate with more renewable energy options. We have to be able to handle that load of increased demand as people start coming in, because they will. In addition to that, obviously we're suffering from climate change right now, so we probably should prioritize that. I certainly think we should. I would invest in different flood resilience measures, climate-smart building development plans, just any kind of research that we can do now to prepare ourselves and make sure that we are set up for this. I also like the idea of possibly looking at state-owned banks or environmental trusts so that Vermont can build up its own resources to enhance our climate change issues. Sorry, wrong word, but I think we should protect our farmlands. I think we should have a fund that we can use for conservation, habitat restoration, that's for our community and not managed by external factors. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Kate. Jonathan?
Thanks, Jackie. Like Kate said, Senator Sears was right. We must protect the beauty of our state, and those who decide to do harm to our beautiful state must be held accountable. And I'm happy to continue to be the champion of that charge. We are fortunate to literally live in the most beautiful state in our country, and we should do everything possible to protect our homes, not just for my 4 children, but for all of our children. And to those who do destroy our resources, like our drinking water, we absolutely must hold them accountable for the damage. And that's actually some of the work that I've been able to do with my career. I build software that helps connect victims of causes like PFAS, like here in Bennington, with the compensation that they deserve. And quite frankly, holds those folks accountable that cause these large-scale issues. So if given the opportunity to represent Bennington County in the Senate, I will do everything I can to divert as much and certainly more resources to this county to ensure that the safety of our water, our soil, because if we don't have safe dirt, we can't grow the right vegetables to have healthy meals. So I will be happy to do whatever I can to make sure that the children of our future can continue to call Vermont home.
Thank you, Jonathan. Representative Bongartz.
So the question, I think, was what role would I take in stewarding Vermont's precious natural resources? I'll start off by saying I've been a leader in this arena my entire adult life. It's been a key focus of everything I've done. And the answer really is I will transfer my leadership role on those issues from the House to the Senate. Over the course of the last 4 years, between the 30 by 30, 50 by 50 bill, this year's Act 250, Biodiversity, Climate Resiliency Housing Bill, the River Corridor Bill that we passed this year, and legislation helping homeowners allow forests to return to old growth, we've passed more truly historic environmental legislation than we have in the last 20 years. I've been a recognized leader in the House on these efforts. No one person is ever responsible for something getting passed in the legislature. And by the way, if you ever hear anybody say that they did something, they're lying, because it's always a group effort. But it is true that if I hadn't been there, some critical housing legislation in this year's Act 250 biodiversity legislation would not have passed, in part because I wrote them. I think a major issue going forward is going to be renewable energy siting. As we go from 10% in-state renewal to 20%, we're going to have to develop the framework to ensure that solar projects are built primarily on already man-made infrastructure like buildings and parking lots, and not on farmland. We're going to have to make decisions as towns and regions about where we do and where we do not want larger solar projects. We need to make those decisions up front and not after the application goes in. I plan to be focused on overseeing the implementation of the legislation we've passed in the last few years and on that issue of siting in particular. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll begin with Mr. Rob Plunkett. In 2022, Vermont made history when voters overwhelmingly approved the Reproductive Liberty Amendment, enshrining the strongest possible reproductive liberty protections in our state constitution. The same politicians trying to restrict our right to access abortion and birth control are attacking the rights of LGBTQIA+ people to lead lives with dignity and respect. This year alone, more than 500 anti-LGBTQIA bills have been introduced in state legislatures. In Vermont, 2 bills attacking trans kids and adults have been carried over to the next legislative session. Trans kids have been the target of much of the legislation, including attacks on their right to play sports with their friends, access life-saving health care, and be treated with the dignity and respect we all deserve. Will you pledge today to reject any and all attempts to restrict the rights of trans people in Vermont? How will you act to defend the right to bodily autonomy for all people?
And thank you, Jackie. And I unequivocally support the rights of trans people of all ages. And any further attempts, I will stop. I had not read these bills before, and they're despicable. Well, I was shocked when I read them, and they're deceptively despicable. To use the language of civil rights to promulgate hate is something that simply should not be allowed. But it goes to show that hate can be clever, or even banal if you have read Arendt. I think recognizing it is important. I think I'm pretty good at recognizing the rhetoric and the language that's used, but I know I'm far from perfect. And certainly no one can do it alone. So my hope is to stand shoulder to shoulder with, I'm not going to get all the letters right, but the LGBT community to not just stop that sort of effort, but to raise more supports where we can, and to simply denounce the rhetoric of hate. And a world without that hate is a better world. It just is. Now, in terms of specific initiatives, I think a lot of that will depend on what comes down from the national laws. And I have a lot more hope now that we won't be seeing some of those. But the Supreme Court's still the Supreme Court, and they will still pass they'll still make terrible decisions that Vermont has to continue to be a bulwark against. And I will help that effort in Montpelier.
Thank you. Kate?
So yes, I will absolutely pledge to reject any attempt to trample on the freedoms of the LGBTQIA+ community. As somebody who has gay and transgender family members, this is something that is very close to my heart, and I am vehemently supportive of the LGBTQIA+ community. That being said, in addition to thwarting any attempt to step on the fundamental human rights of this community, I would also advocate for explicit legal protections. I think that we can go further in that area. So that's one area that I would work on. Another thing, being a woman and having lived in states that restrict my reproductive rights and that are constantly trying to attack the LGBTQIA+ community, I would also vigorously advocate for data privacy protections, especially in the area of healthcare. Your Google searches, your location data, because I want to make sure that everybody, especially the LGBTQIA+ community, is protected from privacy invasions and that nobody tries to interfere with their medical care. On top of that, I think we should offer legal protections for our healthcare providers to make sure that they don't have to worry about getting sued for providing reproductive or gender-affirming care to anybody in the state. Thank you. I also wanted to mention that I take time to listen and collaborate with our advocacy groups, with our community groups, with the LGBTQIA+ individuals, families, and allies, and make sure that they have the same opportunities that lobbyists have in the General Assembly, because I'm pretty sure there's enough room on the Senate floor for these organizations, in addition to the politicians and the lobbyists that traditionally fill that space. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan?
The answer is hell yeah. In Vermont, we respect the personal choices that our neighbors make. We mind our own damn business. And I'm proud to live in a state that stands up for the rights of people, by locking in some of the strongest protections for reproductive rights. Here we just don't talk about liberty. We actually make it the law of the land. And like Kate said, we needed to go further, explicitly, making rules and laws that specifically outline how we can protect the LGBTQIA+ community. For me, this is incredibly personal. As a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, there is nothing more hideous than someone else telling me I am less of a human or less equal than anyone else. And during my campaign for Select Board in Manchester, I had members of the community harass my family because of how diverse we are. Slurs were shouted from passing vehicles while campaigning on a roundabout in Manchester with my kids. So I understand how it feels to be targeted. I'm incredibly proud to know that the state of Vermont is a trans refuge state, and I would encourage more states to join us to make it a larger area of our country that is a place for trans people to feel safe. Because here in Vermont, we are a state that values who you are, and God damn it, we protect you for who you are as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Representative Bongartz.
I'll be very brief. I hate discrimination. I find disgusting efforts to use kids, especially kids already struggling with things like identity issues, as political footballs. It's evil, it's cruel, I'm contemptuous. All kids, all people deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. Luckily, even though those bills may have been introduced, by the way, I didn't even know they had, because nobody is interested in it. Nobody went near it. They have no support in the legislature. But that said, we have to remain vigilant, and if we have to enhance, if we find that circumstances arise where we need to enhance protections, we will. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina?
Thank you. I pledge to fight anti-trans legislation wherever it decides to rear its hateful head. I can't tolerate discrimination, obviously, for obvious reasons, but people don't understand the intersectionality between LGBTQIA community, plus community, with the Black struggle. And I have been researching this deeply for one reason, because I have a family member, a young family member, who is trans. And until the day when we don't have labels, I have to fight for them. So they had mentioned to me that they didn't consider themselves trans. They said, yeah, I guess I am trans. I never thought of it that way. And I was so forever changed, because why does my niece not have that security and that right to feel perfect the way they are? So that's what I'm fighting for. And I have provided testimony in favor and support of Prop 2 legislation. So children should not still be considered and able to be enslaved in the United States. That's just wild to me. I will work really hard to write more legislation. I have actually written some legislation as a citizen and sent it up to the legislature. So that was exciting. So I'm not afraid to challenge bills and legislation, and actually to sue if need be. Thank you for your support and your right and vote.
Thank you, Tina. This next question, I've asked Liz O'D, sitting next to me, to ask the question. Liz O'D was our scholarship winner this past year. Liz?
Over the past 4 years, 4 Vermont municipalities took historic steps to enfranchise more residents. As national political figures heatedly debate a wide spectrum of voting rights legislation, Montpelier, Winooski, and Burlington allow all legal U.S. residents to vote on local races and ballot measures. In Brattleboro, 16 and 17-year-olds can now vote on local issues and be elected to the select board. And here in the town of Bennington, the Charter Review Committee has been charged and considered similar changes to the town charter. Do you support these efforts to enfranchise more members of our community? What other ways will you support and encourage civic engagement?
Kate, we can start with you.
Okay. Yes, I do support that, absolutely. Obviously, Brattleboro recognizes the value and importance of youth involvement in civic life. I think that's amazing. I'm sure Benningtonians do too, so I'd love to see updates like that here as well. Especially with the aging population, I think that it's a great idea to involve the youth, to educate them, get them involved in civics, to fill some of these positions as they open up. That being said, I think that we can make a few changes to make voting a little bit easier and bring in some more voters and increase registration. One of the things that I would like to see is voting day be made a holiday, or at least a half day. There are people who have jobs, who have kids, who may have difficulty getting there. Not everybody is able to get to the ballot box, so I'd like to see that. Another thing I would like to see us raise pay for elected officials to make it accessible to people. Right now, from my perspective at least, it seems that you have to be privileged or wealthy or retired or have to have the kind of job that allows you a significant flexibility to do the job of a legislator. So I would like to see the pay raise so we can see more people in office, more people who have to work for a living in office. On top of that, I would like to make proposing and voting on ballot measures more transparent. I'd like to educate the public on how to do that and how to make it inclusive. Thank you. I also believe that we need to have civics class in high school. At the bare minimum in high school, I think it should be a requirement to graduate, so our kids know how to participate as soon as they get out of high school. And last but not least, I would like to see some diversity in our representation. I think a lot of people do. It is time for a new generation with some fresh perspectives, and I believe that our representatives in Montpelier should know how the legislation they pass impacts their constituents.
Thank you, Kate. Jonathan?
Thank you. So you may have already heard this line before, and to be honest, if you haven't, you may be in the wrong room, but when we vote, we win. And now I'm going to go a little bit further and say that when we all vote, we win. Democrats nationwide have recognized the need for generational change. It's not just about electing new leaders, it's about ensuring that the voice of everyone is heard, especially the young people who will inherit this future of this Bennington County that we all live in today. So that's why extending voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds is imperative. We have to be about empowering the next generation to shape their communities that they're going to live in for the next generations. When we bring younger voices to the table, we're not just planning for tomorrow. We're ensuring that the future reflects the hopes and dreams of all generations. And I just want to take a moment, in particular as a parent, to thank the town of Bennington for understanding the assignment. Today they announced that they are offering childcare for their select board meetings to ensure that all voices, not just those who can show up, have an equitable opportunity to have their voices heard and participate. And that's the direction we should all get behind. And I think we need to see that across our entire state.
Thank you. Representative Bongartz.
Thank you. So as a member of the legislature, I voted yes on all these initiatives. Towns are laboratories. In this case, laboratories of democracy. Fostering civic engagement builds inclusivity and therefore healthier communities. I almost always vote for charter changes. In fact, I may never have voted against one, I can't remember, when they come before the legislature. If the people of Brattleboro want to try something different, all things being equal, that's up to them. Maybe it works, and in this case it will work, by the way. Sometimes charter changes, maybe they work, maybe they don't. But I support the idea of towns being allowed to innovate and sometimes lead the way, as may well turn out to be the case with these voting initiatives. In the case of 17-year-olds voting, 16 and 17-year-olds voting, the testimony that the committee took was very interesting because they found, the evidence supports that if kids start to vote at that age, they continue to vote. If they don't start to vote by the time they're out of high school and they've gone off to college, whatever, they may not vote for 10 or 15 years, if at all. And so getting kids at that age used to voting early is really important. It's really a key building block of democracy. So I was very happy to vote for all of those pieces of legislation.
Thank you. Tina.
I absolutely will champion and support efforts to enfranchise more people. The big corporations know the sooner you start them out, the longer you have them as customers. So it makes sense, doesn't it? You get them involved early. So it was my 13-year-old son, he's no longer 13, but he's the one who convinced me to get into politics. He says odd, strange, interesting things like that often, and I listen. So I listen to the youth. They are so smart, this new generation. They're much smarter, faster, stronger than we ever were. So the more that we hook up with them and learn from them, the better off we'll be. We'll live longer as well. So I also want to improve efforts for new Americans to be involved in civic engagement as well. So I don't know how many of you know that I have a nonprofit organization, and my goal is to use it to get out the vote in a nonpartisan way. I realize that I can do that with the nonprofit, and also to help improve youth and civic engagement. So that is my goal going forward. Anyone want to help with that? I would love your input, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Tina. Rob?
And thank you, Jackie. And I love this question, mostly because I hadn't really thought much about it before. I knew some of the towns had made these charter changes, and I don't think that we had considered it 5 years ago, although Sean Marie might remember if we did. But it just made me think about myself when I was 16 and 17. Some of you out there might remember the 17-year-old me. And that guy was really engaged, really informed, and that guy should have voted. I'm no longer that guy, although that guy's still in me. But, you know, and just thinking about the simple act of residents of a community having a say in what happens, regardless of whether they're a citizen or not, is, you know, got me thinking about why are there restrictions on voting at all? And the restrictions on voting that we usually know about are targeted at the marginalized. And it really got me to want to delve into the historical progress of suffrage. But 2 minutes is not enough time to really go into theory here. So to answer the question, if a town submitted that charter change when I was in Montpelier, I would definitely vote for it. There's no question about it. Whether it's 16, 17-year-olds or just simple residents. If it comes to state or national, that I don't know. That I would have to go into the deep research and theory about that. But in terms of other ways to encourage civic engagement, and I'll reference, I think Tim Corcoran was here, but he mentioned at the forum what Kate had mentioned, that civics isn't taught in school anymore. And I didn't know that. My kids aren't quite old enough to get there. And I remember it was Warren Rofe that taught me civics in 8th grade at junior high. And not to put more of a burden, I do it in the schools.
Thank you, Rob. For this next question, we'll start with you, Jonathan. Vermont's property tax rate is the 5th highest in the U.S., despite a relatively small population. We've also seen explosive growth of properties offered as short-term rentals. In 2022 alone, 26% of residential properties bought in Vermont were owned by investment firms. Together, these issues have a dramatic impact on housing affordability. This lack of affordable housing is often cited as a root cause behind young Vermonters leaving the state and seeking opportunity elsewhere. It impacts our ability to attract doctors, teachers, and police officers. Members of our community have shared concerns about their ability to age in place. What strategies would you pursue to address the intertwined issues of high property taxes, housing affordability, and the retention of essential professionals in Vermont?
Thank you. We really need to focus on what matters, and I believe that's strengthening our middle class and standing up for all the people in our communities. You know, as I travel around our county, I don't see Democrats and Republicans. I see Vermonters who are just trying to build a better life for their families. And we need to do everything we possibly can to protect that. And whether that means cutting red tape, like Seth has worked on with Act 250 changes to help encourage affordable housing in our downtown cores, whether it is giving a financial boost to first-time home buyers to ensure that they can get out of the cycle of renting their homes and start owning their slice of Vermont. There's so many things that we can do. It's not just one solution. There's a multitude of small solutions that we're going to have to work together on to bring everyone up together. And I've always voted for Democrats. I will continue to do so, but I will not hesitate to reach across the aisle if it means making people's lives better. We need to find a better way to fund our schools and the services so that property taxes simply are not pushing Vermonters out of Vermont. We also need to build affordable housing solutions and encourage development of those so that our essential workers, like our nurses, our teachers, and especially our police officers, can live in the communities that they serve, underlining the importance of community policing. By making Vermont a place where we can make it available for everyone to not just live but thrive is where we're going to see the most success in our state, and I hope to be the leader that brings those options to our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Representative Bongartz.
So interestingly, the question starts off by saying that we have high property taxes despite a small population. I think the reality is that actually it is the fact that small rural population is a large part of the reason we have high property taxes. It's expensive to provide services in rural areas, especially including schools. So housing is key to everything. We've pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into housing and supporting infrastructure over the last 4 years. We're starting to see results, but we must continue to fully fund the Housing and Conservation Board, and we must continue to invest in infrastructure like sewer and water lines. We must continue to encourage denser housing in downtowns where we can do everything more efficiently, even as we create, which in turn creates thriving downtowns. Short-term rentals are, in fact, having a negative impact on our attempts to keep Vermonters housed. We do have to do something about it. We have to approach it with a scalpel, not a meat axe. If somebody lives in their home and they have a garage apartment that they rent out for extra income to help them pay their taxes, I think leave them alone. But if it's commercial developers buying middle-class housing and turn it into short-term rentals, we're being played for fools. And we need to tackle the situation with some combination of restrictions and taxation. And finally, this is a lot packed into this question, by the way. Finally, we need to blow up our school funding system and rebuild from scratch. People can't afford their property taxes. I have a lot of thoughts about how to do this, but not in 2 minutes. Not in a minute, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Tina.
Thank you. I have a comprehensive plan to reduce taxes in Vermont and to grow revenues in the state. 30% of Vermont's revenues come from federal grants. I think we rely too heavily on grants and don't produce enough. I have a plan to help Vermont increase GDP. Vermonters are very talented. We have a lot of products that we could license throughout the state and the world and increase general productivity. I will assist, if you elect me to Senate, I will assist municipalities with more grant writing and fiscal sponsorship, support and assistance, as well as strengthen technical assistance programs and workforce training programs. I will focus more efforts on community wealth building because right now, many of the grants that are coming in, 51% of them are going to administrative fees. And that should not be. When a nonprofit takes fees, they're required to only take up to a certain amount. So we need better oversight of the grants. We need to require key performance indicators to make sure that the money is being well spent. And we need to require greater reporting and oversight. And I will make it mandatory. And I intend to join a lot of the committees that Dick Sears joined. For instance, appropriations is very important to me. So I appreciate your time and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Rob?
And thank you, Jackie. And a lot of what I was going to say has already been said. I guess I'll back up. I'll just start with losing Dick Sears was a shock to everybody, and we know that. But in the practical matter, losing him from appropriations was something that's fairly significant. We'll get to that a little bit more in another question. But there are bills that have been passed that are starting this process. And quite simply, I don't know how to solve the housing crisis, but I know how to learn, and I know how to get into the weeds of what the Act 250 reform is going to need as we go forward, and especially when it comes to education property tax and the blowing up of how our education system is funded. And that started. But when we're talking about essential workers, essential professionals, people here, one of the things that came to mind was just everyone that's sitting here. Jonathan West is a professional, he's software. Kate Seaton, another professional, grew up in Shaftesbury, grew up in Manchester. I'm from Bennington. I'm running for state senate. Tina, 25 years, a professional. And Seth Bongartz, who has been here all of his life, was president of Hildene and was in the Senate, now in the House, running for Senate. I think highlighting these sorts of professionals, showing that we can have a life here that's thriving and quite frankly beautiful, is necessary. This might not be a legislative fix, but I think it could be. But just in terms of having Vermont be that place for professionals. And of course, we have to solve the housing crisis too, but I won't have time to answer that one.
Thank you, Rob. Kate?
Yeah, same thing. It's a lot of a question for 2 minutes. I'll do my best. I agree with everyone at the table here. The people that I talk to, everybody's struggling. Everybody is struggling. And I think we all agree that we need to make a few fixes here, especially with our tax system. I would start by looking for alternative funding, alternative sources of revenue to fund our essential services, looking at big business, looking at these private investment firms. What kind of profits are they making? I'd be looking at that to see if there's any opportunity there. We also have examples from other states. Granted, Vermont is its own state, but we have examples that we may be able to take from as well. There are other states who, for example, cap the property taxes. There are states who restrict tax reassessments. I could see how perhaps things like that would work here. I think we can be creative and collaborate together. I also think that we need to incentivize developers to build more affordable housing. I think we've done a fairly good job, but we can keep doing that. To offer inclusionary zoning as well, and as Jonathan pointed out, homeownership options. I think that's how we rebuild our middle class, by giving them pathways to homeownership. So I would support ways that we could reduce that burden, whether it's down payment assistance, housing subsidies. But I agree that we definitely have some work to do. Thank you. I also think that we could fix up our blighted properties. We have some of those here, just a little bit, so I think it would be worth looking at funding, cleaning those up or renovating them if we can, without tearing down trees and building new stuff. Do I still have time? Okay, and the last thing is I would collaborate with schools, hospitals, and law enforcement to create programs that incentivize these essential workers to come. I think we need to be strategic about how we bring people into this state, and we should target those groups first and make it affordable for them to live here.
Thank you. This last question will start with you, Representative Bongartz. As a senior member of the Senate, Senator Sears was an influential member of key committees and was an effective lobbyist for the interests of Bennington County. What is your plan to ensure the legislature continues to provide vital resources and funding for important services and growth in the southernmost county of the state?
I want to start off answering that question by saying that Brian Campion was also very effective and did exactly the same thing and deserves the same kind of credit. But Dick used to call us the Forgotten Kingdom, as some of you may have heard him say that. The key to being effective in the Senate and in the House is good interpersonal skills, hard work, and earning the respect of your colleagues. They need to feel from you a combination of integrity and how deeply you care about the people you serve. The second requirement is truly understanding the needs of this Senate district. That's why, frankly, the North-South partnership formed between me and Rob will be so effective if it works out for this southwest corner of Vermont. And frankly, sometimes you have to play hardball. You have to demand that your voice is heard and that what this county needs actually comes to be. But even then, it has to be from the starting point of having gained the respect of others. I've watched people be effective in the legislature, and I've watched people be very ineffective. I'm a very effective legislator, and Rob Plunkett and I will be a very effective team for the Forgotten Kingdom.
Thank you. Tina.
Thank you. Dick did a lot of work. Some of the committees that he was on was Appropriations, Committee on Judiciary, Corrections Oversight Committee, Joint Fiscal Committee, Legislative Committee on Judicial Rules, and Committee overseeing drug pricing. He was busy. So I intend to stay just as busy. I currently am on tons of committees. I've worked on VHIP 2.0. I introduced the idea for ADUs to the VHFA. So I volunteer a lot of my free time. That's why I'm poor. So I have testified to the legislature during lobby day, and I've even taken on the big banks at the CFPB and the Federal Reserve. So I testified in favor of changes to the Community Reinvestment Act, and I intend to implement the Community Reinvestment Act in Vermont. Right now, it is a completely underutilized tool. A lot of legislators did not know what it was about. I hope to educate more people on the subject. And if you want more information and to follow me, I'm on Facebook at Tina Cook for Vermont, and I also have a website up at www.tinacookforvermont.com. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My address and my phone number are right on the website. Thank you, everyone, and please write me in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Rob?
Thank you, Jackie. And I work in government, so one of the jokes we always have is that Montpelier doesn't actually think about anything below Route 4. And I've seen that. The thing is, though, that Dick and Brian had been a team for a very long time, and they were very effective. They were able to help each other do that, and they really did have an outsized influence that brought the eyes of Montpelier, I almost said the eyes of Sauron, but the eyes of Montpelier down to Bennington. And Seth said most of what I've been planning to say. My plan is to be a team with Seth. I obviously don't have the experience, I obviously don't have the seniority, and the only person up here that does is Seth. He's been in the Senate before, he knows the House, he knows everyone in Montpelier. I know some folks, but that sort of interpersonal skill and experience and just knowledge of folks is essential. But really, Seth cannot do it alone, and he needs someone he can trust. And I've gotten to know Seth. It's been a really short time, and except it's been a very intense time. And I trust Seth, and I know Seth trusts me. And when it comes to, well, we don't agree on everything, but when it comes to things that are specific for the Bennington district, he and I are going to be standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that Montpelier is looking right down here at our corner of Vermont. Thank you.
Thank you, Ab. Kate?
I'm going to rephrase what Seth Bongartz said. The short answer for me is just collaboration. Experience is important, but it is nothing without collaboration and passion. One thing that I've heard a lot is that our elected officials don't spend a whole lot of time on the ground unless they're campaigning or unless they've been invited. I am an effective, respected, strong leader in my industry because I believe that everyone has value and should have a chance. And they should speak. They should feel heard. They should feel safe. As your senator, I absolutely would bring that to Bennington as well. I will listen to people. I will go to town meetings. I will go to agricultural fairs. I want to talk to people and hear from you and what you need. Not what I need, what you need, what your communities need. Like I said, I would meet regularly with town managers. I also, as I said earlier, I think it's important to involve our local community groups, our advocacy groups, make sure that they have a place to be heard. If we have to march up to Montpelier together, that's fine. That's fine. I'll help pay for a bus. Sorry. I also think there's an opportunity to decrease operational costs and improve efficiencies. That is literally my job every day, to proactively monitor systems, make sure that they're running well, and to fix gaps and make them more efficient. So I think we could use that here in Vermont. I think we could use some modernization. I think that could go to websites, that could be to how we communicate with those people out in the most rural areas. But I think at the end of the day, it's just about collaborating and listening to people and getting out there. Yeah, and I would also emphasize the importance of education and workforce development for Bennington. I think we need to offer better education as well as vocational training here to help bring our county to the next level.
Jonathan?
She stole my line. That's okay. This isn't a civics lesson, this is more geography, but I mean, it's quite clear. We are not only geographically the furthest, as a crow flies, and by certainly driving, the furthest away from Montpelier. And not only are we the furthest geographically, we are not even in the media market of the rest of the state of Vermont. I mean, when I grew up, my family sat around the dinner table watching Marcellus Parsons on Channel 3 at 6 o'clock. That's how we knew what was going on in our state. WCAX doesn't even have a news bureau in southern Vermont anymore, right? So we need to get our stories of Bennington County, to the rest of the state. And, hell, even Comcast doesn't even have any Vermont stations except Vermont Public Television. That's if you still have Comcast. So we have to do whatever we can, and we have to make sure that the voices of all of you that I'm incredibly proud to say I could potentially represent, that your voices are heard just as loudly as the folks who live 20 minutes from Montpelier. And quite frankly, here's my line, if I have to rent a damn bus and drive you to the State House, if that's what it takes to have your voices heard on the Senate floor, on the House floor, that's what I'll do. Because we are all going to be better when the rest of the state sees what we here in Bennington County can offer to the rest of the state.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you all candidates for your thoughtful responses, your insightful ideas, and for your preparation for tonight. I know it's not easy to be up there. We'll conclude by giving you each 2 minutes to make a final statement. We'll begin in the opposite order that we went in the beginning. So we'll start with you, Jonathan.
Thank you all. Thank you for hosting this tonight. I'm going to read most of this because I want to make sure I fit it in. Let me take a minute to talk about what's really going on here tonight and truly define democracy. Democracy is the power of the people, plain and simple. It's the idea that every person, no matter where they come from or what they have, gets an equal say in how things are run. I respect the decisions of everyone here at this table tonight. Some of us are running write-in campaigns, some of us are not. And I want to make it very clear that I want to be very clear that it's exactly what democracy means to me, what's happening here tonight and what's about to happen over the next couple days. I wish the best of luck to the other candidates, especially the folks like Kate, who could be one of the first women in Bennington County to represent our county in over 30 years. And I know she'll make a great senator. But let's be honest with each other. If none of the write-in candidates receive more votes than Senator Sears, whose name will appear on the ballot, the democratic process is that, by law, for decades, the Bennington County Democratic Committee will vote to nominate someone to replace Senator Sears on the ballot in November. And let me be further clear, that committee is made up of dedicated elected officials, elected members from every corner of this county. It's a true equitable representation of Bennington County, and to me, that's just as democratic as deciding to run a write-in campaign, and it's just as democratic as our delegates convening in Chicago next week to select the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris. So if I'm given the opportunity to be your nominee, I'm ready to bring the next generation of leadership to Bennington County and to this beautiful state. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Kate?
Sure. I also would like to thank Queer Connect for putting this on. Thank you so much for everybody for coming and asking such thought-provoking questions. Those were some great questions. I'm also going to read a bit, so please forgive me here, but I also want to make a few points. So as some of you may already know, this was not my original plan. I stepped up because I strongly believe that we can do better here in Bennington. And we need to have somebody in the Senate who understands where people here are coming from, who takes the time to reach out and to connect with everyone, not just the elite. We need people who are going to make space for others to participate, who will hold the door open for the community instead of working behind closed doors. I came from humble beginnings, and I've spent 38 years climbing the ladder, forging a strong brand for myself through collaboration, respect, integrity, and hard work. Through mentoring and volunteering, I help others climb to new heights, and I will do the same as your senator. I do not back down when things get hard, and I do not pull up the ladder when I feel threatened. I reach out and I make connections. Everyone deserves the right to live here and to stay here, to work and raise families without fear of harassment or discrimination. Vermonters deserve to feel safe, secure, and valued. We deserve to have a say in policies that directly affect us or that don't do enough. And we deserve to look out our windows and go on a hike and see nothing but miles of the pristine environment that we are so fortunate to have here. As your state senator, I would be committed to ensuring that our natural resources remain a source of pride for future generations. I will vigorously defend bodily autonomy and promote inclusive policies in Vermont. And I will include the community. I will work collaboratively to ensure that we all have an opportunity to participate and be heard. I am asking for you once again to write my name in on the ballot on August 13th for Vermont State Senate. I'm Kate Seaton.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Rob?
And thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Clear Connect. Thank you, everybody who is here and brought us here today. I think one of the things that we've all been talking about in the national, local level is simply democracy, and what that means to us and what it shows. And I think what we know is we're all in an unprecedented situation. Everything changed with Dick's death. And what it had been before was someone ran with Dick, and essentially that's who won. Now, it's a very different election. And it has a very short time, but it's something where I've been out there, I've been talking to people, and they seem to be, well, first of all, there's grief about learning about Dick's death, and that's happened. But there's also an excitement about something to vote for. They now have something to vote for. And that is something that, to me, really speaks volumes, that, actually having the vote is important. And when we'd first talked about running a write-in campaign, I thought it was ridiculous. And no one thought that it would be possible except for Seth. But it seemed like that's the way to go. That is the way to do it. And so that's what I've been doing. And well, I guess I'll just end with my last line. Just simply, I ask everyone here to go out and vote. And when you vote, write in Rob Plunkett as a candidate for state senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Tina.
Thank you. Thank you, Connect. This is an awesome event. Thank you, community, for coming out in a storm, remnants of a storm. You're brave. And thank you for Cat TV for covering this. You're opening this up to a greater audience, and my family, who is far, far away, will get to see this and enjoy it. So thank you all. Dick Sears' work to improve diversity has obviously made a significant impact for the better on Vermont. He was a strong DEI advocate and supporter and champion, and he will be greatly missed. With his passing and Brian Campion's decision not to run, we have a rare opportunity to elect 2 members to the Vermont State Senate. Today, I humbly ask for your write-in vote for Tina Cook for Vermont State Senate. As we reimagine our future and the possibilities that it holds, it is essential to have a Vermont Senate that, 1, is representative of all of its constituents and visitors, and 2, creates plans and strategies that build and bring about comprehensive change and that improves the lives of all Vermonters. I check all of those boxes. So today, I ask for your write-in vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Representative Bongartz will conclude with you.
Thank you, and thanks again, everybody, for coming. I turned in Dick Sears' petitions, as well as my own, on May 29th, 2 days before Dick died. As a result, he appears on the primary ballot. When Dick died, we started looking for candidates willing to take on the Herculean task of running a write-in campaign to become the second Democrat on the November ballot. Rob Plunkett stepped up. To win, he actually has to get more votes than Dick. Otherwise, a small group of people on the Democratic County Committee will anoint someone of their choosing in a thoroughly unrepresentative and thoroughly undemocratic process designed for emergencies. This is because Dick died 2.5 months before the primary. This is not an emergency. And those who would like to run should have put themselves out there in a write-in campaign. That's why I want to thank Kate Seaton, Tina Cook, along with Rob, for doing just that. The one of them who gets the most votes should obviously be the nominee. This is the democratic process, and it was 2.5 months. A quick story about Rob. As we sat in my living room talking through the possibility of him running, and he talked to me about connecting the dots between poverty, lack of housing, drug addiction, mental health crisis, and his job as a prosecutor, I mentioned that the Republican candidate traveled to Washington for January 6th. Before I could finish the sentence, Rob said, "You're kidding me, I'm running." The final point I want to make is that Rob and I provide a classic north-south ticket. We are each well-known and well-respected on our ends of the county. That north-south ticket will leave the entire Senate district feeling represented, and in fact being represented. That said, you will see a lot of me on this end of the county, and those of us living in the north will see a lot of Rob. We will be a team for the district with the credibility and horsepower to keep the interest of this corner of Vermont on the map. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bongartz. And thank you, all candidates. Like I said, it's challenging to sit up there and answer these questions. So if we could give them a round of applause. Thank you all for coming. I echo the statements of some of the candidates that this is what democracy in action looks like. I am so grateful that you were willing to give 2 hours of your Friday night to come and hear about these important issues. So thank you. Thank you to Cat TV for filming. Thank you. Oh, we can clap. Thank you to the Second Congregational Church for hosting us tonight. Thank you to Queer Connect for the insightful questions and for holding and organizing this event. Thank you to Liz O'D, our youth representative.
Again, the primary election is August 13th, this Tuesday. I encourage you all to consider what you've heard tonight and vote for the candidate that you believe in. There are other races, so please do your civic duty to understand the issues in those races and make an informed decision there as well. Thank you for coming. Have a good evening.